Hi, I'm Joni with TheGalavan. Welcome to our Women Working on the Road series. This series is designed to help you get on the road by giving you ideas for ways you can support yourself while traveling. My guest today is a former corporate trainer and is the owner and founder of Remote Work School and the Remote Work Retirement Show podcast. I'm so excited to hear what she has to share.
First of all, thanks for having me. It's so good to see you and talk to you. It's been a while. And I hope we cross paths again in person this year. Let's hope. My name's Camille Attell. And wow, I'm the host of the Remote Work Retirement Show podcast. That's the first time anyone else has ever said that. It's it was interesting hearing it roll off the tongue for you because I really struggled with what to name that thing. But anyway, yes, I'm the host of that show. Where we talk all about the combination of remote work and retirement, because I do believe that remote work is the new retirement plan for many, many people. I guess at this point, I have to start saying a former full-time RVer, because right now I am doing a part-time travel model, but I was on the road full-time from 2016 until 2020. And then in 2021, I went to a part-time model. And in 2022, we're experimenting with other things like international travel, things of that nature. And in terms of a little bit more of an introduction, you already mentioned corporate trainer. I was a corporate trainer for 20 something years. When I left corporate training and started RVing full time, I had the not so great plan of figuring it all out on the road. So I didn't have a great transition plan from leaving my corporate job, but I got into that RV. I started blogging because apparently that's what you're supposed to do. And that turned into Remote Work School, which I am the founder of, as you mentioned. In 2017 was the first iteration, and I rebuilt the entire thing from scratch in 2021 for a post-pandemic world. I do have a website. It's CamilleAttell.com. And I also have a free training on that website, which we'll be talking about here, I'm sure, later today, all about remote work and getting into it, what that means, and the different paths and options. I'm also on Instagram at Camille.Attell. And I'm also on LinkedIn as Camille Attell. People are probably like, LinkedIn, that's a social media platform. Some people.
It is.
And I'm in a few other places, but I think Instagram and LinkedIn are the top two. So you can find me in a bunch of places.
Great. And so can you describe for us what you do for work on and off the road, I guess, since you're part-time?
Yes. Yeah. Well, now after many years of experimenting and trying out at least 12 different ways of earning income since 2016, I fully 100% of my time now run Remote Work School. And that is an online education program. It's a combination of self-study as well as with my coaching. So it's a combination program that you can do at your own pace, but you also get support from me. And it's a 90-day program with the ability to extend after that. And I'm sure we can get into all the details, but that's what I do 100% of the time. And just to be more clear about how that works, it's a digital product combined with a digital service. So it's 100% remote, but it's not the kind of thing where you buy something online and you never have access to the person, because there's a lot of that out there. And that's difficult for a lot of people. This is one where you get, a variety of support, including live coaching from me and being with your peers in a small group coaching program. And that's what I do 100% of the time. That is how I earn my income. We can get into why I'm even qualified to do that, I'm sure, later in the episode, because some people might think, well, she just makes money by teaching other people how to make money. Yes and no. We'll get into the nuances of that. But that aside, sometimes I do a little bit of consulting, business consulting. Sometimes I take on one-on-one clients. I don't do a lot of that because my bread and butter is Remote Work School. And that's where I like to focus my energy and attention.
So Camille, like most entrepreneurs, your journey to your business wasn't a straight line. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I actually recorded a podcast episode, part one and part two, where I talk about this in depth, and I share the good, the bad, and the ugly. And it was a struggle. I'm not going to lie. I think that there's a lot of hype out there about starting a business and what that means. And while generally can be true, I think not a lot of people spend enough time talking about the realities of what it takes to get to that point in time. And so in 2016, I went away from my very cushy and very secure, at least I thought so, corporate job, where I had a paycheck coming in every 2 weeks, and insurance and, all the things. It was tough because, what I think people may be like that is it's not only a journey of learning how to earn income in new ways, it's also a journey of tackling your own identity. And the identity piece was really tough for me because I came out where everybody knew me. I knew my role. I was good at my job. I felt very comfortable, and I was thrust into a world where I didn't know anything. It's like I was living under a rock in terms of what it means to work online and be digital. In addition, nobody knew who I was. Nobody cared. I was no expert. And so I had to go through a really tough period of not only learning how to make money, but what do I think about myself and who am I in this new world? Does anybody care what I say, or does anyone ever get anything from me or hire me for anything? So I went through a big transition period of just feeling very much like a fish out of water. Along that path, I started learning, different ways to make money. I started the blog, which I can talk a little more about later. But really, the best thing I started to do was just freelancing with the skills I already had. And so a lot of my skills are in corporate training, which includes some writing, some training design, well, a lot of training design. I'm really good at communication and listening. I'm really good at taking big, complex ideas and breaking them down into small, easy to understand ideas. So because I knew these things about myself, I was able to kind of take on some different jobs and experiment with just freelancing. So I did blog writing and freelance writing. I picked up some consulting contracts. In fact, the first one I got was with the Escapers, which I know you're familiar with. Wrote some training for them. I started doing a little bit of consulting on the side, training consulting, but then I started taking on things that were way outside my skill set. And this is why I talk so much about really understanding your skill set, what you're good at, what you can do, you're willing to learn, because there were a lot of things I should not have done. Mm-hmm. For example, I was a Pinterest virtual assistant. And Pinterest is that platform with all the pretty pictures. It's a search engine, really. Really bad at that because it's very detailed and it's very repetitive. That's not for me. There were some other things I learned I'm not good at. While I'm a decent blog writer, I was not great at WordPress, which is very technical. So, along the way, I learned, okay, this is what I am reasonable at. This is what I like. This is what I can actually make a living from. And so there were a lot of ups and downs, a lot of unstable income. And, going through that phase is tough. That can be a really tough phase, especially for people who come out of the world I did, which is a corporate world, or a world where you had a lot of security and a safety net of a paycheck.
I'm curious about how you initially found freelance work.
Yeah. So my trick for finding freelance work, it's not really a trick. I think it's well known, but it's different than what we used to call networking in the olden days. I call it the old school days. Networking would be, going to like an in-person meeting where you'd shake some hands and maybe eat some terrible appetizers and, maybe have a conversation with about 3 people and hope that you find, some work, or you ask your friends. And so that's kind of the old days of networking. The new days of networking are so much more effective and powerful because you can do it online and you can do it from anywhere and you can reach so many more people. So a lot of my early days of networking were just in Facebook groups and meeting people in Facebook groups, talking to them online, telling people what I was looking for and what I was good at and how I could help them. I was also able to transfer that same theme when I was in person. So going to things like the Bash, Escapers Bash, which at the time of this recording, I'm going to, this year, it'll be my fourth year with them. The RV Entrepreneur Summit, all these RV events that you can go to. Lots of networking happen there, very organically, very naturally.
Mhm.
But when you're also showing up online in the right places, it amplifies your efforts. So that it's not only the event and it's not only online,
Mhm.
it's almost like an echo chamber. Because someone meets you maybe at an event and then they go follow you on Instagram, or they have a conversation with you in a Facebook Messenger, and it's just so much easier to find these opportunities. And that's really, 90% of how I got started was that way, just meeting people, talking to people, both online and offline. And one thing I have going for me, people say, "Oh, Camille, you're so confident. I don't have your confidence." It's really not confidence. It's a whole lot of courage. And I was willing to say that I would do work, whether I thought I could do it or not. And that's something that I encourage a lot of people to do. It's super scary. It's very intimidating, but not without reason. Like I'm not going to tell someone I can go build them a rocket. I'm not a rocket scientist. I'm not going to tell someone that I can code on WordPress, because I can't. But in the early days, when someone said, "Hey, we're looking for blog writers," and I had just started a blog and had maybe 4 articles, I was like, "I'm a blogger. I can blog." Right. So, just, for example, the other day, because I pick up side gigs sometimes for fun, because I try to show the people in my community that it's actually pretty easy. I found this job on Facebook Jobs. I applied from my phone in a matter of 15 minutes. And it was so it was a tour guide job in my neighborhood. And I'm like, I could be a tour guide. I mean, how hard is that? Turns out, by the way, it was really hard. But I went and I interviewed. And during the interview, the person who was hiring said, "Does anybody here think they could teach iPhone photography as a tour?" I was like, "Well, I take pictures on my phone. Yeah, I could do that." Right. So I raised my hand, and because I was the only person who raised my hand, I'm like, doesn't everyone have a phone? Like, can't everyone teach this? So long story, a little shorter. I got the job. I negotiated the rate because I was the only person who raised my hand. I negotiated the training. I negotiated creating his curriculum because he didn't have any. And I turned a $250 tour into a $750 tour. And so, it's examples like that. So no, I wasn't exactly clear
Okay.
as I would have liked to have been in the beginning, but I was willing to say, I can probably do this for the things that I could probably do.
Sure. That
Yeah.
sounds great. What is the you need for your job in terms of skills, equipment, or even maybe your camp setup?
Yeah. Camp setup isn't hard because my husband and I have a Class A motorhome. So it's the big one with the big window in front. And luckily, most things on it are automated. So when we pull into a spot, we can push a button and our levelers go down. Although, if you know anything about RVs, we have to do that a few times, put some blocks under it, try to get level. But we're like the iPhone of RVs because everything's pretty self-contained. We don't do a lot of manual stuff in there. Thank goodness. Because it is a bit of work, as I'm sure you know. In terms of what I need to work on the road, I keep it really simple. And there are a lot of setups out there that a lot of people probably need, but feel very complicated to me. For example, traveling with your own internet, like your own, built in your RV, which I know would be super helpful, but I've never done it. So
Right.
I have a laptop. I have, for a while, I used just my phone to tether my internet.
Mhm.
That works, a good bit of the time, but then we had to branch out. And so we had to buy a hotspot eventually.
Mhm.
And then we recently got a booster, I think similar to the one that you have. I saw it on your window earlier. There it is.
This is just a MIMO. It's a multiple in, multiple out antenna. And
Yeah.
it works so much better than those expensive boosters. I
Yeah.
can't even tell you how much better it is.
So much better. I know. And that's what I mean by, sometimes the simple technology is the better technology.
Mhm.
Because you're right. That little thing saved us when we were traveling over the summer. So, and then I've got a couple little gadgets, I've got I recently finally just bought earbuds, which I'm wearing now, just so I don't have cords dangling. But like,
Mhm.
I didn't need that for the first 4 years. And I just bought a
Right.
reasonable camera for like $40 that I have on the top. So I have a clear picture, and that's
Mm.
kind of about it for me.
Nice.
So I keep it simple. Did you have a third question in there that I missed?
Um, Skills. What kind of
Skills.
skills?
Okay, skills are important because I teach people about their transferable skills, which are the ones that you already have, that you have built up over many, many years, that can transfer from either one industry to another, one job type to another. For example, I mentioned I'm really good at communication, both listening as well as speaking. At least, hopefully, maybe I'm stumbling over my
Yes.
words in this episode, but normally I'm pretty good. And so, that skill can transfer to a lot of different jobs. However, working online is vastly different than it was even when I worked remotely at my corporate job. When I worked remotely at my corporate job, I still had the security and the comfort of, if I got stuck, I could call my help desk. If I needed extra security, I had a little device that would provide extra security, things like that. Working on my own remotely as either a freelancer or a business owner is so different. I don't have access to a help desk. So things like perseverance, things like being able to figure things out on my own, skills like determination, structuring, just something simple like structuring my day.
Yeah.
So that, because, I don't have a boss staring over my shoulder. I don't have, a team that I'm reporting to. So, if I wake up and I don't feel like working, the day could get away from me. So even just some basic, like structure your day, discipline, figuring things out, skills like that, I think are actually more important than, say, having the skill of knowing a technology. Although that's important too, but I think that you can learn a technology faster than you can learn, say, discipline. So
Yeah. Yeah. And that discipline gets really challenged when you're on the road full time, when your friends want to go hiking and, trying to get with them and say, we need to plan this out because I need to work this amount of time. and a lot of times we don't have to work a set time with what you're talking about, with freelancing and stuff. Often that is, you do the work. And
yeah. Which is the beauty of freelancing, right? If you set it up right, you can work your own hours, you can set your own deadlines. It depends on what you do, but I encourage people to try to find the highest leveraged freelance job, which means, can you take a skill that you have or that you can develop, turn it into a rinse and repeat process that you can then drop into someone else's business, so that you're not working all the time. You've got your process. For example, I have a virtual assistant who recently resigned after almost 2 years, which is like, in dog years, that's like 14 years in online business. So the fact that she lasted 2 years is amazing. Over the course of that time, we built my standard operating procedures for my business. So she now has a skill of building standard operating procedures. She could literally go promote that as an offer to another business. I think she could charge easily $1,000 a day to produce SOPs for someone. And it's not a new skill she has to learn every time. She can just, look at someone's business, figure out the holes, figure out the standard operating procedures, record a bunch of videos, turn them into transcripts, deliver them to the business, probably in an 8-hour day. And a business would be happy to pay $1,000 for a service like that.
Right.
So that's what I mean about the highest leveraged activity for the lowest amount of time, for the most amount of money.
So Camille, did your work as a corporate trainer help with what you're doing now?
Yeah, I think in some ways it did. I mean, one of the things in corporate training that I had to do was I was a project manager for the other trainers. So I would often run the projects once I kind of, moved up in my career. And that project management skill is huge to have, especially in running your own online business, because everything's a project. And so having the ability to see it as a project, break it down into its tasks and execute on it, whether, I do the work or I hire someone else to do the work or hand it off to Nicole, my virtual assistant, is a pretty critical skill to have. I will say, because I run an online education program, certainly having a training background is helpful. But what I will say, and I think this is true for a lot of people coming out of corporate, I think being in a corporate environment, you also, I think it almost can set you back because you're so used to a hierarchy and you get really used to a culture. And that's hard to break. So when I came out of corporate, having to break the thought processes around hierarchy, meaning like, well, I need to run this past my boss. I need to get approval. It's going to take, another month just to get the thing going. I'm going to have to run it through sponsors and get all these, you know what I mean? Like that's a hierarchy of corporate. I don't have any of that now. And so I think when I first transitioned to working remotely, because I didn't have any of that, it was hard for me to just take action, because I was like, well, don't I need approvals, and shouldn't it be perfect? And because, in corporate, it's got to be buttoned up before you do it. In online business, it's the opposite. You go, you implement, you fix it later. So there's a lot of habits you have to break when you come out of a corporate environment. And it took me 2 years to break a lot of those habits. So yes and no, it helped in some ways, and in other ways, it kind of held me back.
Okay. That's really good information.
Oh, good.
And do you have any advice for someone wanting to do what you do?
I teach this inside of remote work school because I've helped so many people. Nearly 700 people have gone through the program since its inception. And what that's allowed me to do is really analyze what the majority of the journey looks like for people. Like if I took, 50 people and I followed their journey, what are some of the trends that I see? And from that, I was able to create the path that I think most people go on. So yeah, I do believe I can really answer this question. And the path that most people go on is, if they come out of a traditional job, whether that's in person or even online, maybe they're working for somebody else and they want to do their own thing. The first thing that makes the most sense is taking the skill you already have. Don't go off and do a bunch of school. Just take the skill you already have and either get another part-time remote job if you need the money immediately while you work on something for yourself. Because I think people need both incomes, at least to start. You need something coming in, but you need to build something for the future. So the something for the future would be maybe taking a skill and turning it into a service. Like I mentioned, Nicole, my VA, now she can take her skill of creating standard operating procedures and turn that into a service that she sells. That's the easiest way to start. You do that over and over, and then maybe you decide, you know what? I want to leverage my time even more. And instead of taking one-on-one clients, maybe I do something in a group, or maybe I do something as a digital program like me. But I think if people jump right into doing an online program, they can really risk missing what are the real human beings asking for. What do they need? Where are they getting stuck? And so a lot of people jump into online training and then their trainings never sell, or they can't grow it to be real income. And I think that it's because the missing piece is they didn't work with enough real human beings as a service to really learn how to develop a program that actually gets people results. Because it's much easier to get someone results with a service than it is when that person has to learn it as a digital product. Because, if it's a digital product, well, they might just buy it and put it on a shelf and never do it. So there's a lot. I could spend a whole episode talking about this, but I think, again, you just have to start where you are, start with what the easiest thing is, then try to create that into a service that you can repeat over and over again and get paid for it. And then you can start thinking about, all right, how do I create a product out of this that I could sell over and over again that doesn't require as much of my time? So that's the path I would encourage most people to take. So Remote Work School is built on real human beings and their journey. And it's built to help people move through the phases of a journey. I literally call it phases. And phase one of that journey is really understanding, what do you want your lifestyle to really look like? Not just, oh yeah, I want to RV someday and travel. That sounds nice. It's like, no, what does it look like on a granular level? Because the more that we can get it down on paper, the more clarity you're going to have about your path in terms of what kind of income you need and the remote work that suits you, that can then lend itself to that journey. And then the second phase is really digging deep into your skills, which I've already talked about in this episode so far. And it's really coming at it from looking at your skills objectively instead of judging them. So we do a few different inventories. I've got all these lessons in there. These are lessons that I've been training for over 20 years in corporate and in all the jobs that I've done, because they're proven. They're tied to, tried and true ways of really unlocking your skills and your strengths and your stories and your struggles, and really pulling that all into your narrative. It's all about your own narrative. And then pulling that into your resume and into LinkedIn, places like LinkedIn, and into interviews, whether it's with an employer or a client. And then eventually in the future phases of the program, phases 5 and 6, now you get into, well, if I want to do client work now, how do I start? Where do I find clients? And then eventually, if I want to turn this into a business where I do the repeatable process over and over again, how do I do that? So it takes people through the phases that I have seen most people go on. And it gives people options of, well, what's going to work for you? How much money do you need to make? How soon? How much freedom do you want? Right. What do your days look like? And let's design that plan for you. And so that's what remote work school is.
That sounds so useful. And the thing that I think is probably just so brilliant about it is helping people learn about themselves so that they can figure out what it's going to work for them.
Yeah, it is. And I'm glad you said that, because I think a lot, some of the mistakes that people make when they're looking to transition to remote work, number one is they undervalue their skills. They undervalue their strengths. And that means they undervalue what they can get paid. I mean, it's that simple, right? And so that's one of the biggest issues I see. The next big issue I see would be, or mistake I see, is when people say, I just need to get a remote job. And we're well past that phase in the world. It's not about getting a remote job anymore, because we all know you could lose your job next week, or you might not like that job, or you're going to leave that job. And so you have to really understand, well, how can I get remote work and create remote income over and over and over again, no matter what scenario hits me? Maybe this year I want to travel, but maybe next year, and this is my journey, maybe next year I have a health issue and I can't travel, and I can't even work an 8-hour day. So now what? And so you have to figure out, what are the levers you can pull if any of these scenarios come your way. Maybe tomorrow it's a full-time job because you need the income, but maybe in 6 months from now, you don't want a full-time job and now you need a part-time job, but your employer says no. So now what are you going to do? And then maybe the year from that, you're like, I only want to work 10 hours a week. So how can I make the most money doing that? So remote work school gives you the tools for any of those journeys. And that's what I love about it.
That's awesome. Is there anything else that you want to say about it or share with anyone before we wrap up?
No, I mean, the only thing I would say is, if people want to learn more, if they're like, this sounds cool, I'm into it, I do have a free training that I direct people to, because then they can learn something without needing to invest with me. And then they can get to see, what's my style? How do I train? What would they learn? All the ins and outs of everything. And I'm sure you'll link to it, but you can find it at CamilleAttell.com. And if you wanted the direct link, it's CamilleAttell.com/remote-training. I'm sure you'll have links here, but yeah, I just encourage people to go take a look at it if they're resonating with this episode, and then they can get more information and decide if remote work school is a good fit for them.
Thanks so much, Camille, for sharing with us. That was super helpful. And I really hope people at least tap into your free training and your podcast. It's excellent. And yeah, I could see this being a really good resource for people who are trying to hit the road and need to figure out this money thing.
Well, again, thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure meeting back up with you.
You too. It's so good to see you again. If you liked this video, please share it. And if you want to see more van and rig tours, van life tips, and other information to help women get on the road, like this Women Working on the Road series, subscribe and ring that notification bell so you don't miss any upcoming videos. Thanks for your thoughtful comments. And if you'd like to join in deeper conversation and learn more about getting on the road, join our Facebook group, Gal Adventurers. This is Joni with the Galavan. Enjoy your journey.